Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to your tutorial on creating a text-based adventure game using Unity. To start off with today, we're going to be starting a new project here, so go ahead and click on New. Give the game a title, Text Adventure. Make sure that you're saving to your H drive in the My Documents. We're going to be making a 2D game, and go ahead and create. Alright, now Unity is open. The first thing that we're going to want to do is go ahead and create some of the spaces for our game. In the hierarchy here, we're going to want to create a canvas. That's a user interface so that it can display all of the things for our game. You should see it pop up there. You might need to zoom out a little bit in order to get it into your view. Now, on the canvas, there's a few things that we're going to want to happen. The first thing is we're going to want text to appear on the screen to describe the situation to our player. So that's going to be another user interface text box. And while I'm here, I'm going to rename this display text. And this is what's going to be in charge of displaying the descriptions of the room and the choices that the player has. Okay. In addition, I'm also going to add in an input field. The input field is where the player is going to actually be able to input and type in their responses and actions. Again, we want this attached onto the canvas, so I'm going to click on Canvas, then click the drop-down menu from the hierarchy, and I'm going to input an input field. Alright. So far, so good. I'm just going to go back to my text box, and I noticed that it's actually displaying right in the middle here. And so I'm going to need to go and resize it using my transform tools. I'm going to drag it all the way to both edges, and then all the way up. Actually leaving space at the bottom, because I'm going to move the input field right below that. And this is going to display everything that the player has already read and is interacted with in the game. So with that in mind, I'm actually going to take the text. I don't like it in the top left corner. I want it to start displaying from the bottom left. So I'm going to go over, keep it aligned to the left, but also to the bottom left. We're going to be putting in a black background on our game. So I'm going ahead and change the color of my text to bright white so that it shows up well on my background. Next thing, let's go ahead and get that input, and we'll go ahead and move that down and to the left as well. Now, the great thing about this input field is that it will expand as needed by the player, so you don't need to worry about resizing it. Let's just get it into that corner, and this is where they're going to type all of their responses. Last thing before we start setting up some of the scripts is we're going to change this background color to a nice black. And again, you do that in the main camera. Under background, you're going to want to just click there and choose a nice dark black. If you don't see your background coming up like this, that's okay. All you need to do is go over to your clear flag there and make sure that solid background is selected. Alright, so now we've got all of the areas set up for our game. Let's go ahead and start putting scripts in so that we can actually control what happened. Okay, so we're going to need a place to store and organize all of our scripts. And so what we're actually going to do is just put it right into our assets folder. Go ahead and right click on that assets folder. You'll see a menu pop up. We want to create a new folder. Doing that creates it right inside of your assets folder. We're going to call this folder scripts. And then inside the scripts folder, we're going to want to add in our script for our rooms. So you right click on the folder, go to create, and this time we're going to create a C# script, and it's going to be called room. Now, Since we created the script for room outside and not attached to any of the elements in our game, this is actually going to be needed to access by just double-clicking on the script. Go ahead and double-click on there to open it in MonoDevelop so that we can edit and add to it. Alright, with MonoDeveloper open, we can now start editing our script. The first thing that we're going to need to do is actually add in an additional reference here. Go ahead up there, hit enter to give yourself some space. And we need to add in the generic system collections. So systems.collections.generic. Again, adding in references here just lets you access different kinds of script and lets Unity know which ones to look at while reading your script. Speaking of scripts though, we can actually go ahead and change something here. One thing we're going to need to change is actually deleting mono behavior. Mono behavior lets a script control an object in a game. Since our script for a room is not connected to an object, it's going to actually need to be a scriptable object. And since it's a scriptable object, it's going to be referencing other scripts in the game, so we're not going to actually need any of these update or start functions, so we can delete those out. Okay, and so what do we actually want this room script to do? We want it to display the descriptions of each of the rooms. So what we're going to need to do is make in a reference to the public variable. And this variable is actually a string. And remember, strings are just any series of characters that the computer sees. And we're just going to call this description. It's going to be the description of the room. Now, since some of our descriptions can be kind of long, we're going to need to make it Unity aware that they can expand the space as needed. So we're just going to add in this attribute text area. So in addition to the description of the room, we also want the game to display the name of the room so that we know which room we're in, and not only that, what is in the room that we're in so that we can collect and interact with it. So we're going to need to add in another public string to display that information. And what information do we want them to display? The room name. So for now, this is really all we need our game to do. We need it to display the description of the room, tell us what room that we're in, and later we'll come back to add in interactable objects to the game and exits, and this is where we'll do the script for that as well. For now though, we need to add one more thing, and this is going to be another attribute. It's going to be outside of the script, and it's going to be, we're telling the computer to create an asset menu. This will let us access different items outside of the script here and give them information and actually characters to display on the screen. To do this, we need to give it a menu name. And the menu name that we're going to be giving it is TextAdventure/room. In just a second, when we return to Unity, you'll be able to see how we're going to use that to make our game playable and interactable. Alright, so our script is good for now. Let's go ahead and save and return to Unity. Now, in Unity, nothing much has changed, but there are a couple of things that we're going to need to add. The first thing we're going to need to add is another folder inside our scripts folder. So I'm going to right-click on the scripts folder, create a folder, and in this folder I'm going to call it scriptable objects. The scriptable objects is going to, of course, hold all of the scripts for my scriptable objects. Right-click inside there. We're going to create a folder inside the scriptable objects. for our rooms. And then inside of our rooms folder, go ahead and right click. We're going to create a text adventure room. Go ahead and name this starting room. Okay, and now that we have our room, what are we going to put in our room? We're going to need to put the description of our room. So I'm going back over to my decision-making map. I'm just going to copy in the description that I already made in my decision-making map. Paste it in to Unity. Here where it says room name, I'm going to use the same room name. It's going to be starting room.
Controller and also the room navigation script.
So in the starting room, this is where we're going to have our description. When the player plays the game, it's going to pop up as they enter into that room. For now though, this is actually where we're going to leave off. In order to control what shows up on the screen and have the player be able to interact with it, we're going to need to add in a couple of more scripts. One of them is the script for the game controller. The game controller is exactly what it sounds like. It's going to control the flow of the game. In addition to that, we're going to need to make another script for room navigation. Room navigation, again, is going to let the player move from room to room and record which room they are currently in. If you have any questions about this first video, please ask me. Otherwise, I look forward to helping you out in part 2 of the tutorial.